There comes a point in your life when you realize that talent isn't enough. Motivation fades, willpower wears out, and goals, they remain just words on paper unless something deeper kicks in. That something is discipline. It is the invisible force that separates the average from the unstoppable. And if you master it, you master your destiny. Most people think discipline is about saying no. No to distractions, no to pleasure, no to rest. But in truth, discipline is saying yes. Yes to your greater self, yes to your vision, and yes to a future that demands more of you. Discipline doesn't imprison you. It sets you free. Free from regret. Free from being average. Free from a life half lived. Let's talk about how to actually build it. Real unshakable muscle like discipline. First, you must understand this discipline starts with identity. You can't outact a self-image that doesn't support your goals. If you see yourself as inconsistent, guess what? You'll act that way. But every time you follow through, every time you show up, you're casting a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Discipline isn't just what you do, it's who you become. Second, structure your environment. Is a limited resource, but the right environment turns discipline into default. If your phone is a distraction, remove it. If your kitchen is full of junk, clean it out. Your surroundings are either making discipline easier or harder. Design them to make success automatic. Third, stop waiting to feel like it. Too many people believe they need to feel motivated before taking action. That's backward. Action creates motivation. Motion generates emotion. Start moving. The energy will come. The hardest rep is always the first one. Discipline means doing it even when you don't feel like it, especially then. Fourth, embrace the boring. Discipline isn't sexy. It's waking up early, doing the work, repeating the reps, showing up when no one's clapping. While others are looking for hacks and shortcuts, you're building something real, brick by brick. And in time, that consistency compounds into something unshakable. Fifth, track your progress. Gets measured, gets improved. Discipline needs feedback. When you track your habits, you become aware. When you become aware, you gain control. Whether it's a journal, an app, or a calendar, track it. Small wins lead to big momentum. Sixth, forgive quickly, recommit faster. You will slip. You will miss a day. You'll fall short. But the discipline don't wait to feel sorry for themselves. They don't turn a bad moment into a bad week. They reset, recommit, and return with more focus. Failure doesn't define you. Quitting does. And finally, understand this discipline is a daily decision. It's not something you have. It's something you practice over and over until it becomes a part of your nature. Discipline isn't for the chosen few. It's for the committed. And when you commit, really commit to mastering it, there's no limit to what you can build, become, or achieve. So if you want freedom, start with discipline. If you want power, discipline. If you want to live life on your terms, sharpen your discipline like a blade and never let it dull. Because at the end of the day, discipline is everything. Discipline isn't the enemy of freedom. That's the lie we've been sold. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that doing whatever we want, whenever we want, is what it means to be free. But what most people call freedom is actually chaos in disguise. Because when you live without structure, without order, without control, you're not free. You're a slave of distraction, a slave to impulse, a slave to short-term pleasure. Real freedom, lasting, meaningful, fulfilling freedom only comes when you master discipline. It's not a cage. It's the key to the cage. You wake up in the morning and hit snooze 5 times, that's not freedom. That's fatigue dominating your life. When you binge watch shows night after night instead of working on your goals, that's not freedom. That's escapism. That's avoidance. You eat every craving you have without control, that's not living fully, it's living reactively. Discipline gives you the power to respond instead of react. Builds a framework for your life where your highest values, not your lowest urges, are in control. And that framework becomes your launch pad, not your prison. You see, the world rewards people who take control. Think about the top athletes, class performers, powerful leaders. They all operate by systems, rituals, and boundaries that protect their time, their focus, their energy. That's not by accident. That's discipline. And it's not easy. That's why so few people truly experience it. But those who do, they walk with a different kind of confidence. They carry a quiet certainty that comes from knowing they're not drifting through life. They're driving it. It starts with the small things. Because discipline is rarely built in the big, dramatic moments. It's built in silence, in private. When no one's watching, it's in choosing to get up on time even when no alarm could shake your exhaustion. It's choosing to finish that workout even when your body screams to quit. It's choosing to show up to your commitment when your emotions beg you to cancel. Every time you make those hard choices, you reclaim more of your freedom. You begin to shape your own life rather than being shaped by everything around you. Most people live like leaves in the wind, tossed around by moods, circumstances, and whatever distractions life throws at them. Discipline gives you roots. It anchors you in purpose. It keeps you focused when everything around you is pulling you in 100 different directions. You don't build a strong life through convenience. You build it through intentionality, through showing up, through commitment, even when it's inconvenient. It's funny, people fear discipline like it's going to rob them of joy. But the truth is, discipline enhances joy. It makes joy deeper. Why? Because when you've earned something through discipline, it feels different. That paycheck means more when you've worked for it. That body feels better when you've trained for it. That success tastes sweeter when you've suffered and sacrificed for it. Discipline gives weight to your wins. It gives integrity to your progress. Here's the kicker: the more disciplined you become, the more you trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. You stop making promises you can't keep. You stop breaking your word to yourself. You stop doubting whether you'll follow through, because you've proven day by day, choice by choice, that your word is law. You don't need outside validation. You don't need external permission. You have your own internal compass. It's pointed straight at growth. That's what discipline gives you: freedom, power, and self-respect. And it's not reserved for the elite. It's available to anyone willing to stop negotiating with excuses and start building something real. It begins the moment you stop asking, "How do I feel right now?" and start asking what needs to be done. It begins when you stop looking for motivation and start building systems. It begins when you stop worshiping comfort and start honoring commitment. So if you truly want freedom, stop chasing ease. Stop chasing permission. Chase discipline. Because the person with the most discipline has the most control. The person with the most control over their time, mind, body, and actions is the one who can create any future they desire. Discipline is not a punishment, it's a path. And if you're brave enough to walk it, you'll find that everything you've ever wanted — clarity, confidence, freedom, fulfillment — was waiting for you on the other side of it. Discipline is not just about action, it's about identity. You can't separate who you are from what you consistently do. Every single choice you make, every moment you honor your commitment, you're sending a message to yourself: this is who I am. And the power in that, it's everything. Because most people are trying to change their behavior without ever upgrading their identity. They're forcing themselves to act disciplined while still believing deep down that they're inconsistent, lazy, or unfocused. That internal conflict creates resistance. And eventually they snap back into old habits because their actions never align with how they truly saw themselves. But when discipline becomes your identity, when it's no longer just something you do, someone you are, you start to move differently. You start to think differently. You stop negotiating with yourself when things get tough. You don't ask, "Should I do this?" You just do it. It's who you are. It's how you operate. Discipline becomes the standard, not the struggle. You've got to understand this: every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. And the more votes you cast, the more you reinforce that identity. If you go to the gym when it's hard, you just cast a vote for being someone who follows through. When you sit down to work instead of scrolling through your phone, that's another vote. When you say no to temporary comfort for the sake of long-term growth, you're building something powerful inside you. And it compounds. One decision may not seem like much, but 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 10, and 10 becomes a life. People think they need some huge transformation to build discipline. They wait for a life crisis, a dramatic breakthrough, or some magical moment when everything changes. But it doesn't work that way. Identity doesn't shift through one big leap. It shifts one small, repeated action at a time. You build your self-image brick by brick. And the moment you realize that your identity isn't fixed, that you can become the kind of person who lives with relentless discipline, you take your power back. Think about it. If you identify as someone who always quits when it gets hard, how do you think you'll behave the next time you hit resistance? But if you identify as someone who always finishes, someone who shows up no matter how they feel, you'll rise. Identity drives behavior more than motivation ever will. And that's why the most powerful thing you can do is build your identity around integrity, follow through, and consistency. And yes, it takes time. Discipline is like compound interest. The gains aren't obvious at first. You won't always see the reward immediately. That's where most people fall off. They don't see instant results, so they revert back to old patterns. But the disciplined person keeps casting votes, even when the scoreboard doesn't change, because they're not chasing a feeling, they're forging an identity. It's not always loud. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't brag. It doesn't need to be seen. It just shows up. It does the work. Over time, it rewrites your story. No one else needs to see the change for it to be real. What matters is that you know it, you feel it, you trust it. Because once you've proven to yourself, again and again, that you can depend on your own word, you become unstoppable. Here's what most people don't realize: identity isn't something you find. It's something you build. It's not written in your past. It's created in your present. The world doesn't get to tell you who you are. Your results don't even define you. What defines you is how you show up every single day. And if you show up with discipline, your identity will begin to rise. You'll start to carry yourself with more certainty. You'll start to move with more clarity. You'll begin to trust that who you say you are and how you act are finally aligned. Because real power is not in pretending to be something. It's in proving to yourself through daily disciplined action that you are exactly who you say you are. You're no longer trying to build discipline as a habit. You're walking through life as a disciplined human being. There's a difference. One is surface level. The other is transformational. And when that shift happens, you're no longer hoping to be disciplined, but instead living it as your truth. Everything changes. The goals, the habits, the routines, they no longer feel like a struggle. They feel like a reflection of your character. That's where the breakthrough begins, not in the doing, but in the becoming. People think discipline is about willpower, about trying harder, about grinding through with brute force. But the truth is, willpower fades. Motivation is unreliable. What truly shapes your discipline is your environment. You become what you're surrounded by. You absorb the energy, the standards, and the systems that you expose yourself to. And if your environment is filled with distraction, chaos, and low standards, be surprised when your discipline struggles to survive. You can have all the goals in the world, but if your environment doesn't support them, you'll constantly be fighting an uphill battle. Look around you. What's within arm's reach? Your phone, your TV remote, junk food, noise interruptions? Or are you surrounded by order, by clarity, by reminders of who you want to become? Most people underestimate how much their surroundings are silently shaping their behavior every single day. If your phone is always buzzing, how will you focus? If your kitchen is full of unhealthy snacks, how will you eat clean? If your workspace is cluttered, how will your mind stay clear? Discipline isn't just about the decision. It's about designing your life so that the right decision becomes the easy one. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your systems. Your environment is the system that silently runs in the background day in and day out. So change the system. Make distractions hard to access. Make progress easy to start. That means putting your phone in another room when you need to work. That means laying out your clothes the night before so there's no excuse when it's time to train. That means clearing your physical space so your mental space can breathe. Discipline doesn't have to be a constant battle when you set the battlefield in your favor. You see, the environment is not just about physical space, it's about people too. Who you surround yourself with matters more than you think. If you're constantly around people who settle, who complain, who make excuses, eventually you'll start to mirror that. But if you're around people who live with intensity, who hold themselves to high standards, take action even when it's hard, that energy rubs off on you. Discipline is contagious, so protect your circle. Upgrade your influences. You don't need people who will justify your mediocrity. You need people who challenge your greatness. Some people will say, well, I don't have that kind of environment. I live in a house that's chaotic. I work in a place that's noisy. I'm surrounded by people who don't support me. I get it. You may not control everything. You can always control something. You can choose what you allow in. You can set boundaries. You can create a micro environment that fuels you. Maybe it's one corner of your room, 1 hour of quiet, one playlist that keeps you focused. Even a small, intentional space can become your sanctuary of discipline if you protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. Discipline isn't just about effort. It's about alignment. When your environment is aligned with your goals, it becomes smoother. Resistance becomes less, and instead of forcing yourself to be disciplined, you begin to flow in it. That's how champions are built. That's how greatness is sustained. They're not superhuman. They're strategic. They don't rely on emotion. They engineer their environment to win. And remember this every time you modify your environment to support your highest self. You're telling your brain, this matters. You're reinforcing that the version of you you're becoming is worth planning for. That's powerful because when you take control of the outside, it starts influencing the inside. You begin to feel more focus. You begin to move with more purpose. Not because you suddenly found more willpower, but because you've removed the friction that once held you back. People want massive transformation, but they ignore the simple mechanics. They want breakthrough. Their phone is still next to their bed, stealing their mornings. They want clarity, but their workspace is chaos. They want self-control, but their social media feed is a highlight reel of distraction. Start where you are. Remove what weakens you. Surround yourself with reminders of your power, not your past. This is what it means to live intentionally. Your environment is either your anchor or your wings. And when you take control of it, discipline becomes less of a grind and more of a rhythm. You stop fighting yourself and start flowing with who you were meant to be. That's when discipline isn't forced anymore. It becomes your new normal. There's a myth that's ruined more dreams than failure ever could. The myth that you have to feel ready, feel motivated, feel inspired before you act. That the spark comes first, then the discipline kicks in. But that's backwards. The truth is simple and powerful. Emotion follows motion. You move first. You act first. And the feeling comes later. Waiting to feel ready is the fastest way to stay stuck. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It just demands that you show up. Think about how many people live their entire lives in the waiting room of change. They wait to feel energized before they hit the gym. They wait to feel confident before they start the business. They wait to feel focused before they open the book. And while they wait, their potential gathers dust. Their dreams slowly decay. Because here's the truth. They're waiting for something that will never come. If you only move when you feel like it, you'll always be ruled by emotion. You'll always be a prisoner to the mood of the moment. And moods are liars. They lie to you when it's early. They lie to you when it's hard. They lie to you when the results don't show fast enough. If you want to be great, you can't let your emotions drive the car. You've got to get behind the wheel with discipline. Discipline says I move regardless of how I feel. I act whether I'm inspired or not. And something powerful happens when you do that. Your physiology starts to catch up. Your emotions begin to shift. Your body wakes up. Your mind sharpens. Your confidence builds. Not because the feeling magically arrived, but because you started moving anyway. Action creates clarity. Action generates energy. You don't sit around and hope to feel strong. You move and strength rises with emotion. The people who accomplish incredible things aren't those who are constantly fired up. They're the ones who mastered the art of acting in spite of how they feel. They don't need the stars to align. They've trained themselves to respond with excuses, not with delay, but with movement. Discipline is a muscle, and every time you act before you feel like it, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you push through resistance, you send a message to your brain that you are in charge, not your feelings. You'll hear people say, "I'm just not feeling it today," as if that's a reason to pause. But the ones who win don't let feelings dictate their behavior. They honor the schedule, not their moods. They move with intent, not emotion. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs wait for motivation. Professionals build routines. Routines are built on discipline. Discipline is built on movement. And movement is something you control every single day. Let me be clear. It's not about becoming a robot. You're human. You'll have off days. You'll feel drained. You'll face doubt. That's okay. What matters most is what you do on those days. Anyone can act when it's easy. Anyone can train when they're pumped up. What defines your future is what you do when the fire is gone, when the room is silent, when no one's watching. That's the proving ground. That's where identity is forged. That's where discipline is born, not in motivation, but in movement through resistance. And here's what's even more powerful. The more you act without waiting to feel ready, the more you train your nervous system to respond. You become someone who doesn't need external energy. You generate it. You become someone who doesn't look for a push. You are the push. And that kind of power, that's rare. That's dangerous because you can't be manipulated by delay anymore. You're not stuck in the trap of, "I'll do it later." You've become the kind of person who moves. No questions, no hesitation, just forward. So the next time you don't feel like it, move anyway. The next time your mind says, "Not now," do it anyway. The next time fear whispers, wait, step forward. And in those moments, when you act in defiance of how you feel, you take your power back. You teach your mind that you are in command. Over time, that pattern becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. Not someone who needs to feel good to act, but someone who feels good because they acted. Because the secret isn't motivation, it's momentum. And momentum belongs to the movers. If you want to change your life, stop sitting, stop waiting, stop watching, start moving, because your future isn't waiting on inspiration, it's waiting on action. One of the biggest lies people buy into is that discipline means going all in and fast every single day. They think if they're not pushing to the limit, it doesn't count. So they go hard for a week, burn out, fall off, and then beat themselves up for failing again. That's not discipline. That's unsustainable intensity. Real discipline is about showing up consistently, not explosively. It's not about doing everything in one day. It's about doing the right thing over and over, especially when the excitement has worn off. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Anyone can be intense for a short time. Anyone can wake up motivated on a Monday and hit the gym harder right for 5 hours or eat clean for a few meals. But discipline doesn't care about what you do once. Discipline is built in what you do daily. It's not one massive action. It's small, repeated commitments done without excuse. You don't build a strong body from one crazy workout. You build it by showing up on the days you don't feel like it. You don't create a successful business from one long work session. You build it with relentless follow through. Consistency is what turns good intentions into real life results. Think about the people who are masters in their craft, the ones who stand out, the ones who seem unshakable. They didn't get there by doing more than everyone else in a week. They got there by doing a little more than most people every single day. While others chase short-term hype, they chase long-term habits. They show up even when it's boring, even when no one's watching, even when there's no applause. They don't need the reward right away because they know the reward is coming. They're stacking small wins day after day. Discipline is not a mood. It's a lifestyle. And lifestyles are shaped by patterns. The pattern of waking up and doing the work. The pattern of following through. The pattern of choosing structure over chaos, process over impulse. When you commit to consistency, you take discipline out of the emotional category and put it into your identity. You no longer ask yourself, do I feel like it today? It becomes, this is what I do. This is who I am. And here's the trap most people fall into. They confuse effort with frequency. They believe they can't give 100%. They shouldn't start at all. But here's the truth. Giving 50% consistently will always outperform 100% occasionally. It's better to do a 20-minute workout 5 times a week than to go all out for 2 hours once a week and then quit. It's better to write 1 page every day than to write 10 pages once a month and get discouraged. Consistency builds momentum. Intensity burns it out. Consistency compounds. That's the secret no one wants to hear because it sounds too simple. But that's exactly why it works. When you show up and do your best every day, not your maximum, but your best, you build self-trust. You prove to yourself that you're reliable. And over time, you start to expect more from yourself, not because you're forcing it, but because you've raised your standard through repetition. And that kind of confidence, the one built on evidence, not hype, is unshakable. Discipline doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. Some days you'll crush it. Some days you'll struggle. But if you stay in the game, if you keep showing up, if you stay consistent through the ups and downs, you'll still win. Because most people quit too soon. They confuse a bad day with a bad path. But the disciplined person knows that one off day doesn't cancel 100 good ones. They stay the course. They reset. They keep going. You don't need to overhaul your life in a day. That kind of pressure breaks most people. What you need is rhythm, a rhythm of progress, a rhythm of discipline. The more you repeat it, the more natural it becomes. At first, it'll feel hard, comfortable. But after a while, it becomes your default. That's when discipline gets locked in. That's when success becomes inevitable because you're no longer relying on force. You're running on flow. So if you're serious about discipline, start chasing highs, start chasing habits. Don't just show up when it's convenient. Show up when it's inconvenient, when it's dull, when it's messy. That's where greatness is built. Not in the moments of fire, in the quiet repetition of doing the right thing, even when it's the last thing you feel like doing. Because in the end, the person who wins isn't the one who sprints the hardest. It's the one who refuses to stop moving forward. Every single day. Most people think failure is the opposite of discipline. If you mess up, if you fall short, if you break your routine, you've failed. And that failure means you're not disciplined. But the truth is, failure is part of the path. It's not the enemy of discipline. It's the teacher of it. What separates the ones who master discipline from those who give up is not that they never fall. It's that they rise faster. They don't let failure define them. They don't turn one mistake into a reason to quit. They see failure for what it really is: feedback, a signal, an opportunity to recommit with even more clarity and strength. There will be days you slip, days you eat the wrong thing, days you skip the gym, days you scroll for hours instead of working. And the moment after that choice is what matters most. That's the defining moment. The moment where most people collapse into shame and say, see, I knew I couldn't stick to it. But the disciplined person says, I slipped, but that's not who I am anymore. Let's get back up. Let's move forward. The slip doesn't define the identity. The response does. You have to give yourself permission to be human without giving yourself permission to stay stuck. Discipline isn't perfection. It's resilience. It's the willingness to come back again and again, even when it's embarrassing. Even when you feel like a failure, even when it would be easier to just let go. The stronger your discipline, the faster your rebound. You don't sit in the failure, you don't replay it in your mind over and over. You learn the lesson, adjust the plan, step forward. Because disciplined people don't waste time drowning in guilt. They rise with purpose. It's not about how many times you fall. It's about how quickly you recover. And every recovery, every comeback, every restart strengthens your mental muscle. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who always gets it right, but as someone who refuses to stay down. That's powerful. Because when life hits you, and it will, you won't crumble. You've trained yourself to keep going, to realign, to fight back with intention. And that kind of strength isn't built in comfort. It's built in the messy moments, the days when you feel off track and choose to get back on anyway. So many people abandon their goals at the first sign of failure. They tell themselves the story that because they slipped once, it's over. They think discipline means an unbroken streak. But life isn't about streaks. It's about direction. If you're heading toward growth, if you're taking more steps forward than back, you're winning. And if you mess up, that's not a reset. That's part of the route. Discipline allows for failure. It just refuses to settle there. You also have to understand that failure reveals weakness, and that's not a bad thing. When you fail, it exposes the part of your system that needs more attention. Maybe your routines are too fragile. Maybe your environment is too tempting. Maybe your goals are vague. That failure is pointing out what needs to be fixed. So don't resent it. Study it, respect it, because the people who grow the fastest are the ones who treat failure like data, not defeat. They use it, they build from it. They refine their process and get sharper with every fall. And when you train your mind to see failure this way, you stop fearing it. You stop letting it paralyze you. You stop avoiding the hard things just because there's a chance you might not succeed the first time. Because you know now it's not about getting it perfect. It's about getting stronger every time you return. And over time, that discipline of returning becomes a superpower. You stop breaking down every time something breaks. You learn how to bend, not shatter. You build the ability to continue forward. Scarred, maybe, but never surrendered. This is where the real transformation happens, not when everything is going smooth, but when you're faced with disappointment, setback, and pain, and you keep going anyway. That moment you get back on track. That's the moment you become someone new. Someone who no longer needs the perfect conditions to be consistent. Someone who is no longer swayed by emotions or failures. Someone who knows that discipline isn't about staying flawless. It's about staying faithful. So don't let failure fool you. Don't let it become your identity. Let it refine you. Let it humble you. Let it strengthen your comeback. Because the one who stays after falling, the one who continues when it hurts, the one who recommits in silence, that person is unstoppable. That's discipline, and that's who you are becoming.